Hi there, I'm Dr. Jasper, and today I'm going to be talking to you about concepts on the elementary ed exams, specifically the ELA portion of these exams. And it has to do with phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and phonics. Now, a lot of people get confused with these different skills because they all start with a PH, they all kind of sound the same, and they're all related to reading. So today I'm going to help you figure out how to distinguish among these particular terms, especially on the test. I'm going to show you some tricks on how to be able to identify them in the correct answer choices. So when we are teaching students how to read, they start with these specific skills. They don't just come out and start comprehending complex text. They have to start with understanding words and sounds and letters. And so that's what these skills are here. I want you to think of phonemic awareness, phonics, and phonological awareness as this graphic right here. You'll see this in our book. In all of our elementary ed books that have to do with ELA, we talk about this. I'm going to start with the sub-skills first, the tiny skills that they need before they move to phonological awareness. But just understand that phonemic awareness is one of the first skills students get. This has to do with the sounds in words. Phonics is the next skill that has to do with the actual spelling. And phonological awareness is putting all of that together to understand words in full. Now, I'm going to break this down a little more here. Phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is the sounds in words. Only the sounds. You can do phonemic awareness in the dark. When I was learning to teach reading, that's what my peer instructor told me. She said, if you're talking about phonemic awareness, you can close your eyes. You don't have to see the word. You're just listening for the sounds in the word. And you can see, and this is one of the easiest words, bat. Bat has three sounds. B, A, T. Now, students need to understand this as they're learning words because they have to understand the sounds in words. Some activities that teachers do, they might say something like, change the first sound in bat to a P sound. So the students then would go P, A, T. Or the teacher may say something like, take the first sound off of the word. And the students would then go A, T. These are just exercises to help them understand the different sounds in words and get them acclimated with words. Now, on the test, you're going to see this in a variety of ways, but I've pulled a couple of questions here for you to take a look at. Take a look at this number 20. This is from one of our practice tests in our ELA K6 book. Phonemic awareness includes the ability to, and we have A, form compound words and combine word parts, spell accurately and decode unfamiliar words, pronounce individual sounds in words, and differentiate between homonyms and spell accurately. Now, remember, sounds. Sounds have to do with phonemic awareness. So anytime you see phonemic, think sounds. All of these other answer choices here, compound words, this has to do with the structure. And with phonemic awareness, we're dealing with the sounds. Spelling, remember I said before, and we're going to get into this more in a second, spelling has to do with phonics, and you have spell and spell here. So D would be out, B would be out. Compound words is a more complex skill and does not have to do with phonemic awareness, so A would be out. And C, if I remembered that phonemic awareness has to do with sounds, pronounce individual sounds in words, like we did here. B, A, T. This word is made up of three individual sounds. Now, you and I both know that on these assessments, it's not always that easy. I mean, sometimes right here, this is basically the definition of phonemic awareness, but a lot of times they'll give you a scenario in a question and you'll have to figure out what the students and the teacher are doing. So you can see here we have a scenario. A teacher is helping students understand rhyme in words. She uses words like sound, found, hound, and round. She and the students are working on a lesson that focuses on. Now, this is a little bit different than just talking about the definition of phonemic awareness here. We are talking about rhyme. And remember, you got to think in depth. Rhyme has to do with the way words sound. Now, in this instance, sound, found, hound, and round are all spelled similarly, so this could be tough because you have the O-U-N-D, 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 and O-U-N-D. But when we're talking about rhyme, we're talking about the sounds in words. So phonemic awareness is going to be my best bet here. Phonics has to do with spelling, and we're not concerned here with the spelling. We're concerned with the way the words sound. So B is out. Semantic analysis, and I'll just go over this really quick. Semantic analysis has to do with the meaning in words. I always like to use the M in semantic and match that to meaning in words. And syntactic analysis, it has to do with syntax or structure. That's if it's spelled correctly or if the grammar is correct. Syntax has to do with errors in spelling or grammar. So make sure you pay attention to that. Semantics match the M, has to do with meaning. Syntax has to do with structure. But this is about rhyme, and rhyme has to do with the way words sound. And in this instance, phonemic awareness would be your best bet here. Phonics has to do with the spelling of words. So unlike phonemic awareness, remember we said phonemic awareness can be done in the dark. You do not have to actually see the word to hear the sounds. Phonics, you have to see the letters and know the rules for those letters. You know, these are simply symbols. And when they're put together based on the English language, we come up with different sounds. Now, CH is not k, h, right? CH is ch. And we know that because we have a certain rule attached to these two letters connected to each other. That's phonics. Just like when we see SH, we know to think sh. When we see PH, we're not saying p, h, we're saying f, like an F sound. How would you know that? Unless you understood the rules or the spelling rules for this particular combination of letters. And another one I like to do is TION, because if you didn't know TION rules, you would be like TION. But really, this is shun. So phonics has to do with spelling, and you have to see the word. You may also see this as graphophonics, meaning graph. If you see the word graph in the front of a word, that means to write. And remember, phonemic awareness is just sounds. Phonics has to do with the rules for every single type of combination and letter. And those rules help us spell and help us read. You have to actually see the word in order to do phonics. Now, here's a good example here. Students are recognizing spelling, keyword there, and pronunciation rules. Pronunciation rules tend to have to do with phonics because you're attaching rules to a suffix, TION. What are students engaging in? Well, it's not phonemic awareness right away because I have to be able to see TION to assign a rule. Now, it certainly makes a sound, but the sound is attached to the letters. And that's where it's different than phonemic awareness. Phonological awareness, that's not this right now, but we'll talk about phonological awareness later. Semantic analysis, remember, semantic analysis is meaning. And we're not talking about meaning here. We're talking about pronunciation rules. Anything that has to do with rules is going to be your phonics. For example, here's another way. Make. Phonics tells me that the A here is long because there's only one consonant here and then another vowel, which makes this A long. If we had something like this, I know that this A is short because we have two consonants here. Well, how do I know that? I know that because I understand phonics and I know the rules. These are rules in the English language that govern these particular combinations of symbols or letters. So that's phonics or graphophonics. Now, let's talk about phonological awareness. Remember, phonological awareness is the umbrella. Phonological awareness is putting it all together. The sounds, phonemic awareness, and the spelling, and the syllables, and the structure, and all of it, and squishing it all together to understand the word in its entirety. So that's why I like to use this umbrella graphic, because phonological awareness is the umbrella under which phonemic awareness and phonics sit. Okay, so think of phonological awareness, and I like the word logical. It's just the way I remember. You actually have a logical understanding of the word, which is putting it all together. You're using your phonemic awareness and your phonics and your syllables and all of that good stuff to understand words. And you may see it something like this. When a student has awareness of phonemes, remember phonemes are sounds, syllables, onset rhyme segments, these are also sounds. Syllables are structure. Sorry about my handwriting here. Spelling is phonics. This person, he or she is demonstrating all of it, the umbrella, phonological awareness. It's not just phonics. Even though we have some spelling here, we also have sounds and structure. So phonics is not it. Phonemic awareness, fine, we have sounds, but we also have syllables and spelling. It's not just phonemic awareness. And structural analysis, syllables do have to do with structure, but that's not the only thing we're talking about here. We're talking about the entire thing, phonological awareness. Now, be careful. Sometimes you'll see something like this on the test, and it may say something like, a teacher is using this particular word to is breaking up this particular word and showing students. Now, you see I have this word written here, but what have I done? I have broken this word up into individual sounds. So the word is differentiate. It's a big word. You probably wouldn't use this with students, but I have seen this on the exam where it's a big word. But what the teacher has done here is broken this thing up in words. Di, I, f, in, t, I, ate. Differentiate. So this would be phonemic awareness. Okay? That's going to be phonemic awareness because it's breaking up the individual sounds in this particular word. Okay? And then this one is a little bit tough too. I saw this on the FTCE specs. This is from their document, the Florida Department of Education. Which of the following describes what happens in the graphophonic, and remember, this is phonics. Graph means to write. Phonics is the spelling, so this is similar to phonics. It's pretty much the same thing. Component of writing, okay? Graphophonic, it's the phonics component of writing. Let's take a look at A. Students learn how to form letters correctly and legibly. Well, to graph is to write, so to form letters correctly and legibly sounds good. I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to cross it off, but let's go to the next one. B, students learn how to organize ideas into various text structures. We're not talking about text structures here. And organizing ideas, this has to do with spelling and writing. Ideas have to do with meaning. So I'm going to cross B off. This is a little bit more complicated than just graphophonic stages of writing. Students learned that one sound may be formed in a number of ways. Now I know that sound has to do with phonemic awareness, but may be formed in a number of ways. Maybe something like, your F and your PH, right? PH, as in photo, makes an F sound, and F makes an F sound. So C, even though we're talking about sounds here, they're being formed in a number of ways here. This, to me, looks like phonics or graphophonics, but let's just keep it and move on. D, students learn that words are made up of letters that represent objects and ideas. Well, yes, they are made up of letters, and that has to do with phonics because we have to see the letters. However, they don't represent objects and ideas. They represent sounds. So D is out. So be careful. Make sure you read all the way through. Now let's take a look at A and C. Students learn how to form letters correctly and legibly. Well, that might just be that I'm going A, B, C. Okay, that's the beginning stages of writing. If we're talking about the graphophonic stages of writing, then we're actually talking about the phonics where we're spelling things correctly. We're using our proper endings and all of that. So A is going to be out here and C is going to be the correct answer. Students learn that one sound may be formed a number of different ways, as in the F or the PH or other instances. All right, so I hope that clears things up for you. Make sure you remember that phonemic awareness is just sounds. Phonics or graphophonics is about the spelling and the understanding of rules attached to the symbols being letters. Remember, these are just symbols. These happen to be our symbols in English. But we know that CH makes a ch sound because we know phonics. Phonemic awareness can be done in the dark. You do not have to see the word to understand the sounds. You can close your eyes and go b, a, t, and know there are 3 sounds in bat. And then phonological awareness is putting all of that together so that you understand the words in their entirety.